Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where you can see I'm joined by James Benge for a late week treat. Bit later than usual. Although saying that, it's become a bit of a regular occurrence now on a Friday. Certainly the last couple of Fridays for Inside Arsenal Extra Time. James, how you doing, mate? You good?
I'm very well. Yeah, I don't love these Friday ones. I know our viewers would prefer we were on a Thursday, but what would you have me do? I've had a busy week, so I simply couldn't make time in my hectic diary for you, Charles.
Indeed, you had to drag yourself to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. I hope you've had a shower since then. And got rid of everything that you might have picked up at that place. They've managed to get through though in that competition that I'm not thinking about anymore, thankfully. So yes, how's the week been aside from heading down to the wrong end of North London?
I mean, it's been quite thrilling and engaging, hasn't it? I thought the Champions League games were brilliant, except the one that you and I were at on Wednesday night, which genuinely, as I was getting to the Tottenham Stadium on Thursday, I was sort of thinking, I can't remember anything about that game. Like, one of the most weird Arsenal games I've ever seen. But other than that, did you watch PSG Liverpool?
I did watch PSG Liverpool. Yes,
Oh,
I absolutely enjoyed that. That was an absorbing game, wasn't it? PSG. I mean, the difference in that team now from when we played them at the start of the season, it's just chalk and cheese, isn't it? I mean, we so comfortably beat them earlier on in the season.
mm,
It was just almost like, when you're in a school playground, you're a couple of years playing a team a couple of years ahead, and you're just sort of patting them on the head. Kind of felt
yeah,
like what Arsenal did to PSG at the start of the season, and now you look at them, the way they're playing and the way they played over those two legs. I saw the stats at the end over the 880 minutes. It was something like 40 shots,
yeah,
18 on target over the 180 minutes. I mean, they absolutely deserved to win that tie comfortably. Obviously, it went the whole distance and they won it on penalties, but yeah, they were taught Liverpool a little bit of a lesson over 180 minutes. I thought, aside from the second half
mm,
at Anfield, no,
mm.
comfortably the better team.
And absolutely fantastic. And I know there's a little way for Arsenal to go to get there, but it looks like a really hard road ahead, doesn't it? And I mean, I have to say, I think they're now that best team in the PSG in the Arsenal Real Madrid side of the bracket, and I think they might be the best team in Europe. I
How,
think
how,
the one thing
how
we
does that
can
happen?
feel
How does
they
that happen?
signed
How do you go
this.
from being the team we saw at the Emirates to now suddenly probably being most people's tips to potentially win the tournament in the space of a few months? How's that happen? Is it just
Well,
a
I'm
case
sure
of go
our
on?
viewers from January will remember we were both very keen on the idea of a top team signing Kvaratskhelia, and we said he could change. I think he could change any team that he ended up at. So feeling quite good about that. I think Kvara and Dembele have helped enormously because you get you get such a fluid front three with those two and Barcola, and the 1 minute one of them will be right wing, one of them will be centre forward, and when you have that to work with, if you're Vitinha, if you're João Neves, I think everything changes and it becomes a team that really fits together. They also press brilliantly off the ball.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, it's the sort of the dual thing of sort of finding Dembele at centre forward and adding one of the best wide forwards in the world to that setup. Transformative, and then yeah, you have a lot of good players behind, don't you? Vitinha, wow, Vitinha's unbelievable.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of like chalk and cheese, isn't it? Watching Arsenal and watching PSG at the moment, in the way they attack, the movement, the pace of that front line, it's just an absolute joy to watch. It really is, and they comfortably well done to them, beat Liverpool. And the Arsenal game was weird. It was really weird. Obviously, I wasn't in the press box. I was in the stands. So I was right next to the PSV fans, who are brilliant, by the way. It was fantastic. They sort of added something.
Yeah, they did.
I can't imagine if they weren't there that night, it would have been the most pre-season friendly type game you've ever seen in your life. I actually thought Arsenal would probably lose that. I went there expecting Arsenal to lose just because I thought the PSV had want to, just get themselves a bit of pride back after what happened, and Arsenal would be a mix and match team. And I was quite happy that it was 2-2, and they didn't end up losing the game. But it was a weird one. The goals though, all 4 goals, real quality, weren't they? It really was high quality goals for a strange game that was played at kind of walking pace for a lot of the time. The 4 goals were very, very good.
I mean, Zinchenko's hit is the obvious one, but the way that Declan Rice met Raheem Sterling's cross with like
Mm.
a poof, it was sort of Les Ferdinand-esque. I mean, yeah, really good goals to enliven I mean, I thought the first half was sort of competitive in an encouraging way. Like PSV were working to earn some pride and show themselves to be a good team, and Arsenal matched that and responded. And I think the players that needed to deliver broadly delivered. I know there were quite a few critics of Ben White's performance. I don't know what you thought about Ben White. We could talk about Zinchenko and Sterling, but I think we both know good games that maybe don't mean a lot. But White, what did you make? Because I was quite pleased with what I saw.
I thought he looked rusty. There was definite signs of rust there. I thought a couple of times he got caught. I thought he was a little bit sluggish at times in terms of his recovery pace getting back. But on the whole, I thought it was a fine first start in 4 or 5 months. You know, it was. I don't know what else people would really have expected from him. So yeah, a little bit rusty, I thought, but on the whole, good and glad to see him back. And he looked fit enough, which is a bonus.
A couple of nice dynamic attacking moments as well. I know PSV are a team that really let you play that way because they're so man to man. But I think it's really good then that Ben White, just back from injury, can beat his man, can blow past them. And there was that one moment, wasn't there, where he comes out of his own half and ends up getting a shot, carrying the ball all the way.
Yeah, the left foot one that you put at the keeper.
Yeah, I think if Arsenal were not 6 goals up on aggregate, you might say, Ben, square that, knock that off. But I think given the context, it was really, I thought, really encouraging. And suddenly I'm looking at this team now, aside from the gaping holes in the front line, and thinking, yeah, there's options there. There's ways you could set up for a Champions League quarterfinal tie, especially in defence. You can do whatever you want to do with that back line. You can configure it in any way you can imagine. I think Arsenal are looking all right.
Yep, could do some wins though.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice to do some wins. Right, Mikel's obviously been speaking at his press conference today ahead of Sunday's game against Chelsea. The kind of main sort of headline is, I mean, he spoke a lot about, obviously, Lewis-Skelly in England squad. We'll get to that and all that stuff. He talked a little bit about Real Madrid and the Chelsea game, but about Bukayo Saka, this is what he had to say about when he was asked for an update on Saka. He said, he's getting closer. He's stepping up and making very good progress, I would say. So let's see when we start to throw him in with the team, how he reacts and how fit he can get quickly, which for all of the things he said about Saka so far is probably the most positive. I sort of listened to that and thought, oh, I think he's probably fairly close now for the way he's talking about that. It kind of felt like he's in that stage where obviously doing well in the gym on his own. At some point pretty soon, we're going to chuck him onto the grass and see how he gets on. Obviously, we've got the Chelsea game, and then it's 2 weeks? It's more than 2. Just
2.5 weeks off.
Yeah, till the it's a Tuesday night, Fulham, isn't it? On April 1st, I think it is when Arsenal come back. So 2.5 weeks then after Chelsea game, you feel like that could well be the time we might see Saka in training. Anyway, wouldn't it? During this international break.
Yeah, it feels to me like the Madrid game has sort of focused minds, and to an extent, especially before the first leg of PSV, what would be the sense in setting a really strong timescale for, we need Saka back on this date and we need him ready to go for this date when you don't even know how far you'll get? And realistically, with the Premier League, it was pretty apparent several weeks ago that there's no point gambling on Bukayo Saka's long-term health or even his medium-term health for a Premier League title challenge. That it just isn't going to come. Now, I don't think Arsenal would ever gamble on Saka's recovery, but the extent to which they would ease back on the caution for this Real Madrid tie, we all know. We all know that managers make these decisions every day, and that they think maybe he could have another 2 or 3 days on the grass, maybe another week before we make him take a step up. But if we think we can do it, much like they did with Martinelli, if we think he can do it, let's give him a go, because this game really matters and this is a real opportunity. And I do think the challenge is it probably wouldn't be a fully fit Saka, but I think if you had anything approximating the Saka that we had at the start of the season, I think Arsenal's suddenly become a team that can have a strong belief that they can knock Real Madrid out. Not favourites, but not rank underdogs either, which is almost where they are without Saka. So
Mm-hmm.
it feels like the draw has focused minds, and probably I'm sure Saka has got that date in the diary, circled it, and thinks I want to be back. So I mean, to me, it looks like maybe you'll see him in the from reading between what Arteta said and applying a lot. Maybe you see him in the squad against Fulham. Maybe he plays more significant minutes against Everton, and you see them where you're at on April the 8th. It's still a while off.
Mm-hmm. I've literally got I've literally got April the 8th circled in front of me on a bit of paper.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's it all focus is on that game. But yeah, so there's 2 games you talked about. Then you got Fulham on the 1st, Everton away on the 5th, and then the first leg against Madrid on the 8th. So the best you're going to get is 2 substitute appearances, you would say.
You would think
he's not going to start either of those 2 games, even if and we don't know for sure if he's going to be fit for this. We're kind of speaking hypothetically here, we're presuming. But if he does come back during the international break and starts joining in with a group and is fine, there's no real issue there, then at best there's going to be 2 substitute appearances before the Madrid game. Feels probably still a little bit of a stretch to be starting for him to maybe be available to start the first game, but he might well be available to start the second game in Madrid, you would think. To be fair, Martinelli, they surprised us with Martinelli, though, didn't they? That came out of absolutely nowhere. The morning of the United game, I woke up and suddenly seeing those videos on the internet of him getting off the train in Manchester. I was like, what? Is that legit? I was convinced it was going to be an old video, but so he got to Manchester and he was there and he came on. So they do like a bit of a surprise, and it would be a huge boost. And we are seeing him more and more. He's at all the games now, isn't he? He's around the place. He's in the changing room. He's not. It feels like we are getting there. And to be fair, this is the timescale they've always worked on. After this international break, early April, that was always kind of from January onwards. That was always the date we were kind of being told, not set in stone, but that's what people were sort of working towards. So fingers crossed. I've got a few questions. Hold on, let me just find it while we're talking about this subject. It's probably a good time to bring them up now. So these are all about the Real Madrid games. So we'll go straight into these. We've got one from Anto Wolf for NYC. He says, "Hi, Charles and James. Shout out for the Arsenal Mexico Supporters Club, please. Gracias." Oh. There you go. There's your shout out.
We'll be delighted to come and visit you.
Absolutely. Not having a crystal ball, I think this could be the best possible time for Arsenal to draw Madrid. Think about the season they're having right now and the young players they have in their team. There is every possibility they are absolutely steamrolling teams next year or for the next few years to come. I'd rather face them now before they really start to gel. There is possibility the next few years this team becomes almost unbeatable. Tata there says, "Hi, Charles and Virginio. I know it's 3 weeks away, but what would your starting lineups be for the Madrid game, assuming Saka is not fit to start? Also, James, please try to stop Charles from going to the second leg by any means necessary." And then Hasted says, "Would you choose a fit Havertz or a fit Saka for the Madrid tie? You can't say both." Might seem an obvious question, but we don't seem to have a good focal point for Raya to go to long to right now. So we'll work through those. Firstly, of course, to Anto, big shout out to the Arsenal Mexican Supporters Club. Is this the best time to play Madrid? Would you rather play them now than in the next couple of years? I don't know. Is there ever a good time to play Madrid in the Champions League? I don't know.
I think Anto makes a really good point. They haven't quite clicked yet. They've made compromises that have got more out of Mbappe and Vinicius.
Mm-hmm.
But it means you kind of, I think as a unit, they feel a little bit less effective in attacking terms. When I saw them in the flesh against City, I thought they were much better than City. But having seen a lot of the other teams in the Champions League now, I don't think they're quite the best by any stretch of the imagination. Also, just from practical terms, there'll be no Tchouaméni for the first leg, and he's the real high-grade anchor in that midfield. There won't, Camavinga, you would assume, will come in. Camavinga and Dani Ceballos back at the Emirates. That's not as strong as it might be. And, Bellingham, they've had to make compromises in terms of his attacking output just to sort of really move him to left midfield so that Vinicius and Mbappe can play together. So yeah, I think Anto's made a really good point there, but I know what you're thinking, Charles. It's Real Madrid.
Well, they just find a way to win. They did in midweek. They weren't great over the 2 legs. Atletico to a better team over 2 legs, and again, Real find a way to win, or maybe the officials find a way for Real Madrid to win. Anyway,
I can't believe he touched that twice.
I don't. I mean, I've spoken
knows
about.
that
I'm just going to draw my curtain here because I'm getting blinded by the sun.
By all means, I will keep vamping while you do that.
No, it's yeah. I mean, I think he probably does touch it twice, but I don't think there is conclusive evidence in that. And I know, and everyone's freeze framed it. People have sent it in, and you can see, and I'm just like, I don't know for sure. I know what everyone's saying, and he probably does touch it twice, but I don't know how they can say with absolute certainty that is a double hit and to rule that out. I'm really surprised. I was watching it. I was on the Paddington station, and a guy was watching it on his phone. We were waiting for the Elizabeth line train to come in. I was peering over his shoulder watching it. And I was just like, what on earth has happened there? And then he was like, in the end, he was like, right, I can't be bothered with him looking over my shoulder. I'm just going to literally let him watch my phone now to watch the shootout. And we were both just so shocked at what had happened. It was just so bizarre. I felt for Atleti. I really did feel for him, I have to say. But just quickly back to these two. So, yeah, assuming Saka is not fit to start, what would your starting lineup be for the first leg? I mean, I think it's...
Because the fullbacks is the other question you would have.
Yeah, I would be going for Timber, I have to say, at right back over White, I think. And I'd be going for Lewis-Skelly at left back. So I don't even think that's actually that tough a decision for me. Maybe I'd play Timber over at left back and have White at right back. It depends on White's fitness for me. You know, if I have any doubts over White's fitness, then it would be Timber right back. But yeah, maybe there is a decision to be made there on sort of putting Timber over to the left hand side.
That's the choice I'd make. I'd have Timber left back to deal with Rodrigo cutting onto his left foot. And then, again, assuming sort of full fitness, which there should be time for Ben White to get, I'd have White at right back.
Okay. So obviously Saliba, Gabriel centre back. And then midfield, Partey, Odegaard, Rice. I wouldn't really make any changes to that. So what about up front? Obviously, if Saka's not fit, would you be tempted? I mean, there's another sort of debate on this, but Martinelli as a striker, is that something that Arsenal should consider now he's back?
What I would do is probably, as much as I think there are signs of it heading in the right direction, I would probably park Merino as a centre forward, and then play Trossard and Martinelli with just a little bit more. It's not really how Arsenal work their left winger, but you're going to basically have to try and come up with a way of them being a bit more fluid, maybe closer to each other. Maybe they just rotate. One's left winger sometimes, one striker, and vice versa. And I'd do that. And then obviously, I suppose the only position that's not maybe up for debate, Ethan Nwaneri on the right wing.
Ethan on the right. So what would you do? You wouldn't have Merino?
No.
So you'd have Trossard as centre forward?
Yeah. But in a sort of like, he'll do 15 minutes at centre forward and then Martinelli will and vice. You know, you sort of see what the game gives you and see if you think Martinelli's more effective, rather than a hard, fast rule about who's playing up front.
Yeah, I'm intrigued what he's going to do with the forwards. He spoke about it. Where's the quote? I've got it here. Here it is. It was he was asked, is Merino still the centre forward option now that Gabriel Martinelli's back? And he said, now we have more options. It's true that we have to really manage the load of Gabby. He's been a little bit ahead of schedule, and that's what we didn't want to take, and we don't want to take any more because we've been loading in with more minutes. I presume he's talking about a risk there. We said we didn't want to take the risk, which is understandable. But yeah, I'm intrigued by what he's going to do now with Martinelli back and the whole Merino at centre forward thing. Is this going to change? Is it because you do have the option now of having like a front three of Nwaneri, Trossard, and Martinelli? Obviously, there's no focal point there in that three. But when you talk about maybe this sort of fluidity and movement and pace of PSG, it's not that standard, obviously. But maybe there is an option to do that and make yourself a little bit more of a threat in the final third, because Marino's doing a job and he's working hard. He worked really hard against PSV. I bet he was absolutely knackered after that game, the amount of distance he covered. But there is no real threat there, is there? You basically got one of your forwards who's just not offering a threat, really. And yeah, I'll be really interested to see if he does anything different before the Madrid first leg, tests anything out on some of the games.
Yeah, completely. I suppose to answer that final question as well, I don't think that's very close. I think it's Bukayo Saka. It just breaks games. What we said last season was the reason Arsenal kind of got knocked out by Bayern was they didn't have that one game-changing forward, or the game-changing forwards. Well, they do now. Bukayo Saka's been that guy all season. So give me him in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I love Kai, and I want him back quickly, but I don't think that's even a hard question to answer. I know what he means, having that focal point up front type thing, but yeah, Bukayo Saka all day long. Get him in the team as soon as he's back. Don't risk him. Don't rush him back too early. But if you're confident he can get back, then get Bukayo Saka back in this team. Right, quickly. The other news today: Miles Lewis-Skelly's first England start. No Ethan Nwaneri. Declan Rice is in the squad. Though this is what Mikel said at his press conference about Lewis-Skelly getting his call-ups. He's very proud. It's a huge moment for him and for the club as well. One of our graduates getting the call for England. It's a massive thing. So very happy. When he was asked if he's been involved with Thomas Tuchel about this sort of decision, he says no, but I'm sure that will be the case. And Thomas is a top coach. I know a few people around him in the England setup, and I have no doubt they will do the right thing with him. Obviously, no Ben White in the squad, but Tuchel said that he has now declared himself available for England. The only reason he wasn't in the squad was because he's only just come back from injury and hasn't had enough game time. Mikel said, yeah, well, I heard there's been some positive conversations around it, so I imagine it will be more about timing than anything else, especially the amount of time he's been out with the injury. So interesting there from Tuchel anyway in his press conference today, what he was saying about...
Did you watch it?
Declan Rice. Ben White. Did I watch Thomas Tuchel's press conference? I watched it while I was on the treadmill at the gym. So I was watching it with subtitles and things like that.
Impressed?
So sorry?
Are you impressed with our new leader?
As impressed as you can be when you're watching it on a treadmill via subtitles.
I thought that Tuchel spoke really well about Lewis-Skelly, and I think he understands that there is a discourse separate from Arsenal about Lewis-Skelly that he can positively impact by entrusting this player with minutes on the national stage. And he was talking about how Lewis-Skelly, if he can handle the pressure of being picked by Arsenal, he can handle the pressure of being picked by England and playing for one of the best teams in Europe. And also talking about how he wants to use players like Jordan Henderson to help Lewis-Skelly deal with these moments. I think this is going to be great for Lewis-Skelly. I think really encouraging. And
I get that. I get that. And I'm glad he said that. But I don't understand why Jordan Henderson needs to be anything to do with it. I honestly, I know there's always someone.
I think that was more about why Jordan Henderson's there than Lewis-Skelly.
Why does he need to be there? He doesn't need to be there because Lewis-Skelly's there. It's ridiculous to call Jordan Henderson out. It's just the one thing I looked at that squad and said, why are you doing that? I just don't get it. I know there's a couple of injuries in midfield at the moment, but
he's a good dressing room guy.
I don't care. I don't care about that. He does not need to be in this England squad. We moved on from that. And I think it's the one thing I think he's made an error on there. I just don't think there's any need for him to come back. Yeah, but great news for Miles. Ethan's in the 21s as well, which I'm kind of glad about. I've spoken about it before. I don't think there's any really major need. I can understand Lewis-Skelly, and I think if people weren't injured, certain people weren't injured, I don't think Skelly probably is in this squad. Mm-hmm. I think he's in on the 21s with Ethan, but the injuries kind of needs must for Tuchel, and I can understand him getting the call up. But I'm quite glad that Ethan maybe just has a little go in the 21s for now, and they use him. And I have no doubt they'll be in the World Cup squad ultimately. But for now, I don't think there's any major rush to get him in there.
That 21 squad, by the way,
pretty strong, isn't it?
Wharton, they've got Bellingham in there, haven't they, as well? It looks really good. Excited for. I'm really excited for this. I'm going to be at both games, I think. I think England could be going in the right direction. And while I agree with you that Lewis-Skelly wouldn't have been rushed in, I think on his trajectory, if that continues into the summer, then I think it'll become really hard to not keep picking Miles Lewis-Skelly. And then 2026, if things carry on even sort of at the level they are, let alone on the trajectory they are, I think Miles Lewis-Skelly will be England's left back at the World Cup.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Absolutely wouldn't surprise me. Right, let's quickly talk about Sunday before we go. And we've got quite a few questions to go through as well, but we'll talk about Sunday first of all. Obviously, there's going to be lots of changes from what we saw against PSV in terms of the team selection for him. It was 5-0 last time. Mikel was asked about that, actually. I've got the quote here. He was asked about beating 5-0 last year. He said, I think it's going to be a very different game. I think the way they develop as a team as well is very impressive. What they've done on the coaching staff, the amount of talent they have in the squad. So, yes, it's going to be a really tough match, but we had our best luck, a big chance for us to win the game. I'm not quite sure what he means
I think he's sort of referring to that 5-0.
Oh, the 5-0.
It was a good moment, wasn't it?
It was. It was. That second half was a lot of fun last year. I can't imagine it's going to be the same. And Chelsea, they edged it against. Who did they beat the other day? And Kukurea scored the goal, wasn't it?
Copenhagen.
No,
and then at the weekend was Leicester.
Leicester, that was it. 1-0.
Southampton.
That was with my FPL hat on now. I've got such a dilemma. Yeah, I've got such a dilemma here because I have had Cole Palmer in my team all season and I've kept him in. And week after week in the last couple of months, he has got me sod all. Even against Southampton at home and Leicester at home last week. And I said to myself, right, if he doesn't score or do anything against Leicester, that's it. He's out because he's costing me too much money. I can put more in. But my dilemma is, do I take him out before they play Arsenal? Because you know what's going to happen. If I take him out, he'll score a hat-trick. If I leave him in, he'll do nothing. And so I keep thinking, just, for me, I'll take one for the team here. I'll just leave him in my fantasy team, accept 2 points if it means that he does nothing against Arsenal. Because I'm convinced if I take him out, he'll obviously score.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, guys, fancy football. It's nonsense.
It is not nonsense.
I can't stand it. I hate the thing.
It is not nonsense.
I'm sure I'll do one next season as well, but, Ugh.
Are you just saying that because you've been rubbish this season?
I haven't even. I couldn't even tell you who's in my team.
So yeah, you've been doing rubbish.
I think it's just so. Yeah, it starts slowly, and I hate it. It's just so warped, like how people follow football. That stupid Le Bon nonsense. I'm just like, When did we change from the days where you watched football to just enjoy the suffering of other teams and maybe, if you're lucky, enjoy some success for your team? Now everyone's sort of obsessing about which Tottenham bench player is going to get on for the last 15 minutes so they can get a point. Ugh, in the bin with all of it.
You obsess about blooming XXG and all that sort of That's
exactly
nonsense. That's nonsense.
That stuff. The
Fantasy Premier League is not nonsense, but some of the stat stuff that you go over, that's nonsense, my friend.
If they do fancy Premier League where it includes XG, then I'm back. I'm back in the heartbeat.
That'll be the end for me. That's when I disappear. As soon as they start drawing arrows on graphics saying where people should be going, that's my lot. That's my lot. What do you think about Chelsea then this weekend? Many changes from. I can't even remember the last league game Arsenal played. Who did they play last weekend?
Oh, is that rubbish one, wasn't it? United.
That was it, United last weekend. So yeah,
game,
it was. I'm trying to think of the team. United. It was Tim
Marino up front. Yeah.
We had Nwaneri on the right.
Came in, didn't he?
Yes, he played left back, didn't he? So yeah, any changes from that? Would you still start Lewis-Skelly?
Maybe you start Lewis-Skelly. I don't think, from what Arteta was saying, I don't think he'll start Martinelli. We'll probably see Martinelli get more minutes. No, and I think to an extent maybe the issues that they had against United may be less apparent against the Chelsea team that's not looking that strong defensively. Even with Fofana back, I think there's still work for them to do. At the moment, they can only sort of really grit it out against relegation teams. I think it's a good time to be playing Chelsea. And I think maybe it's the sort of game you could win by the odd goal. But equally, I don't know if kind of our viewers feel the same, but almost as we sort of inch towards like 30 games, 32 games, and it becomes pretty apparent that there's not really any jeopardy of falling outside the top 5. It almost feels completely irrelevant.
Yeah,
like,
all eyes are on the Champions League, aren't they? Absolutely. But you've still got to do a job, and you can't just down tools. And you say no jeopardy in the top 5. I mean, they're not that far off. It's about 7 or 8 points, isn't it? And there is still
8
quite
points
long
ahead of City. Yeah,
exactly. So there is they need a few wins, because it's been what? When was the last they lost? It was West Ham
Leicester.
defeat. Drawn a couple of games since then. So yeah, they haven't won since the Leicester game, since the Marino game, have they? So you can't let that go on, too much longer. They've got to get a couple of wins under their belt, and they've dropped points against teams they should have been beaten recently. So I do think there is a little bit of jeopardy in it. They definitely need to get a few wins under their belt, especially before that Real Madrid game. You don't want to go into that game having on about 6 or 7 game run without a win in the Premier League, do you? You've got to find some momentum from somewhere ahead of that game. So I think it's an important one. Today.
On the subject of momentum for that Real Madrid game, do you know the Everton game is the Saturday early kickoff against David Moyes?
Yeah.
The final game before Real Madrid. They're losing that. I'll tell you that, mate.
Well, David Moyes loves Arteta, so he might do Arsenal a favour and just rest everyone for that game.
At least
tell them they're not allowed to tackle. It's no contact. It's a no contact game.
Having stolen the title from Arsenal last season with the most ridiculous win for West Ham at the Emirates, it is the least you could do, David. And I know you're a gent, you're a top man, David. So please, if you wouldn't mind.
Are you going out to Madrid for the second leg?
It depends on what happens in the first leg, really.
God,
I don't,
prices will be about $2,000 by that point if you're waiting until.
Well, some of us have the munificence of CBS that we can fall back on if it's relevant. We'll see. I haven't had that conversation with my desk yet. Would like to. Certainly would like to. I've been to the Bernabeu as a fan, but never professionally.
Yeah,
it's got a good press box.
I missed the Emirates game. I'm not here for the Emirates game. I'm away.
Okay, so can Arsenal build up another lead at the Emirates to negate Charles Watts' curse?
Well, no, at home games, I'm not cursed for home games. We win our fair share of home games, and I know it's just when I go away in Europe that it hasn't worked out well. But it's always that run's got to end at some point, and what better way for it to end at the Bernabeu?
No.
It'll be absolutely
no. You can you're welcome to test that run after Arsenal have won the Champions League. Once that's happened, you go where you want.
Unfortunately, my flights are booked, my hotel's booked, so I'm going. So it's.
I'm sorry, everyone. I will do what I can.
Non-negotiable, as Mikel Arteta would say. Right.
No. How long have you got? I want us to do more random. How long have you got in Madrid? Are you going to be able to tourist it up?
I am going. No. I'm going to be. I arrive at about 2 p.m. on the Tuesday, so the presser will be about 7 or 8. 7 or 8. So I'll get to my hotel, basically drop my stuff off, get to the Bernabeu for the press conference. Then obviously got the day on Wednesday, and then I fly out 10:30 in the morning on Thursday.
It's a great city.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of Arsenal fans there. This is a game that everyone. I just really hope we've stayed in the tie, or have something to go for in that game. Whether it be draw, whether it be win in the first leg, whatever. Just it'd be a real shame if you sort of go there and it's kind of considered tie over already. That'd be really, really disappointing. I don't think it will. I think we'll start. I think we will be. That we'll have something to play for when we go there. So
right, it'll all go wrong in dramatic fashion because it's Real Madrid.
Don't say that. Right, we are now going to move on. Come on, we're going to move on to some questions because we're at about 33 minutes already. Okay, Max has got in touch and says, "Hi guys, would you rather sell Zinchenko for 12 million, my best guess at the most anyone would offer for him this summer, or keep him as a backup left eight? I think Arteta's recent experiments with Zinchenko in the left eight is to see if he can be serviceable backup at the position for next season. With both Partey and Jorginho leaving in the summer, all of our incomings will need. It seems unlikely we'll be able to bring in 2 midfielders. If Zinchenko can work as a backup left eight, then you just need to bring in a Zubimendi to complement Rice, Marino, Zinchenko, and occasionally Havertz at the 6 and 8 positions, plus Sesko, top left winger and backup keeper. We should be in a pretty good place for next season." Yeah, so when we've spoken about Zinchenko left eight a lot when we've sat down and talked, haven't we? We're actually seeing it now, finally.
Well,
how do you think he did it in midweek from the start in that position? And then
he was the right eight. And I think that's what really matters. He was the right side of the
right eight. Yeah, that is true. I wasn't even thinking about that. He was the right eight, wasn't he?
And I think the challenge here is, I think he I can see Arteta using him as a left 8 in the sort of particular game states. He came on against Forest and West Ham, definitely against Forest as the left 8. And I think when you want a bit more guile in your midfield and another player like Ødegaard who can get the ball into the box, I see value in Zinchenko there. But I don't really see many games where Arteta would start with a left 8 like Zinchenko and Ødegaard. So I think I'd have to take the 12 million, thank you.
I think I'd take the 12 million as well. I haven't seen, I mean, I'm liking the fact we're seeing him more there, but I haven't seen anything that has made me sort of think, oh, bloody hell, we should be doing that all the time now. You know, it was a nice goal. I didn't think he was, you know, anything better than average in midweek in that position. It was a nice goal, nice hit, and it was good to see him getting in that position and take the shot on and score it. But I think if someone's offering you sort of 12, 50 million pounds from him in the summer with 1 year left on his deal, I think you've got to kind of accept that and see what else.
Plus, you have Lewis-Skelly can be an 8 or a 6.
He played there in the second half, didn't he? And in midweek. So yeah, I'd be taking the money. What did you watch here at Tottenham yesterday? I didn't see the United game, but I saw a lot of people not impressed by Zubimendi against United. I saw a lot of sort of backlash, albeit social media stuff about Zubimendi's performance and that Arsenal should steer clear and it's going to be another load of money on a dead midfielder and stuff like that. It was definitely a bit of a backlash against him on the back of that performance.
Didn't see the game, I will admit, of course. But my favourite was a certain. I really enjoy the content this YouTuber social person puts out. I really do enjoy it. But I loved it when he said, "I've never seen Zubimendi have a good game," and it was sort of like, "Did you watch the Euros final, mate?" Yeah, I wouldn't over-index one game.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says he's great, and his stats say he's great, and yeah, I need to watch a lot more of him before I started worrying.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen enough of him either to really know or make a sort of real considered sort of thing on it. But yeah, it was interesting just seeing the reaction to that. It was. Right, move on. We got one from Burley Gurley. Says, hi, Charles and James, extra time squad. This rail tie is glamour tie. It's what the Emirates Grove Wenger Dome was built for. Happy to have rail over Atleti as we might have a bit more space to operate in. No low block. I'm worried about Saliba tapping up though. The insights in Athletic about the Watkins situation when Arsenal played Villa, transfers do get discussed in situations like this. Saliba said he's happy at Arsenal, have to take him at face value, but the scars of the banter era and top players leaving are things I still feel. I think we all feel the scars from that era. Am I concerned about that? I mean, they do happen. That sort of thing does happen. They do get discussed in boardrooms. We saw it, as you said, with Watkins. We saw it with Villa again, actually, a couple of years back when it was Douglas Luiz just before deadline day. And that definitely was big discussions going on during the match about the possibility of Douglas Luiz coming to Arsenal. So it does happen. I don't think it would happen then. I think when it does happen, maybe it happens more around when deadline day is close and looming rather than, midway through it just in a Champions League quarterfinal. I think it'd be pretty disrespectful, really. What did you make of? You weren't there, obviously, but I was there, and I liked.
Yeah, you tell me.
I liked what Saliba said. I thought the answers were good. I mean, when I asked him specifically, is there any talks that have started? He said no. And when he said to me, there's no rush. So I was like, yeah, I think quite a lot of Arsenal fans would disagree with that, William. Might not be any rush for you, but I think definitely Arsenal fans think there would probably be a rush because you don't want to get towards the year left type of situation. But I liked his comments. I liked the line, which was a very catchy line of, if you leave before you win things, you're very quickly forgotten, which I thought was
very good.
Yeah, it was a very good line from him. Obviously, the proof's going to be in the pudding. Anyway, I just think the next year is crucial for him because I don't think anything's going to happen this summer. I think we're definitely going to get into the situation where he's into the final 2 years of his contract. I'd be very surprised just because of the length it took last time for a deal to be signed and everything like that. I'll be surprised if it gets sorted this summer. I think we're definitely going into next season with Saliba and probably Saka having not signed new contracts. So I think we're going to have to just accept that. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. So yeah, do you agree with that, or do you think something might get done?
I fully agree. And the only thing to add is, and we've said this maybe a fortnight ago, we've certainly said this a few times, it's just not Real Madrid's way of doing business now to sidle over to Tim Lewis or the Cronkies or whoever and say, what would you say if we offered you £150 million for Saliba? What they will do is be sort of in touch with Saliba and saying, or eventually, if this is where they choose to go, they'll be in touch with Saliba's representatives, sort of saying, what would you say to not signing a new deal at Arsenal, to holding out a little while longer, and coming on a free? So yeah, I'm always worried about William Saliba going to Real Madrid, but
Yeah.
I feel like we're not. It's not going to, like you say, it's not going to reach ahead this summer. I don't think.
Well, when you think about it like that, though, with Saliba, it's like that's a terrible position for Arsenal to be in, really, isn't it?
Horrible.
The way that Real operate like that, because there's not really any other club that will sign William Saliba because no one's going to be able to afford it, really. Yeah. And then you're basically, if you're Arsenal, you're like, what do you do if he's not going to sign a contract?
And you might not be able to sell him.
Yeah, because it's going to be hard. Because then what you're going to do? You know what I'm going to sell you? It's like, well, who are you going to sell me to? And I don't think Saliba will do that. Will say it like that. But if that ends up being the situation that it is, where they're kind of kicking it down the can and say, oh yeah, we'll have talks, but it never gets signed or never gets done. It's like, what do you do? I mean, you just basically almost resign to losing him on a free because you can't really sell him anywhere else.
I think you go to UEFA, or you go to CAS, and I wonder how long this sort of situation where Liverpool have effectively had to accept that Trent Alexander-Arnold wants to go to Real Madrid, it seems, and kind of Mbappe also had PSG kind of over a barrel, and it sounds like it will keep happening. And when that happens, I think before too long, I don't know how you kind of go about negotiating it, but it almost becomes a thing where you have to go to UEFA and sort of say, well, we can't have these sort of circumstances. Maybe you have to more rigorously enforce sort of tapping up regulations, but God, I know it's impossible to manage.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. Anyway, that's a bit depressing note that we've just been talking about. But yeah,
at least you'd get 2 years.
Yes,
try and win a title.
Of Saliba, 2 more years. Well, hopefully more years. I didn't get the impression that there's no way. Obviously, he's talking. It's at everything. It's very public. He's not going to say anything else. But I did kind of come away from that. I think that was quite good from Saliba. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He is still young. I think ultimately if Arsenal are going to show him, the next year is going to be so crucial because obviously this season we know, barring the Champions League, nothing's going to be won. But if next season they can really kick on, prove that this season was just a bit of a one-off and a bit of a standstill season, they can win some trophies, and you got more of a chance of keeping him and others because they know they can fulfill their ambitions here. Is this from you, London James? Although currently you're Beaconsfield James, aren't you, at the moment? But
indeed, and the last thing I want is a bigger stadium.
Soon you'll be London James. Says, can you talk about later about the stadium? We're starting to hear more chat about more seats and upgrades. Internals of the stadium are very bland and dated. There is a lot of wasted space inside the concourse and outside. What more can be done to raise revenues and make the enjoyment of the fans better? E.g., you can wait 20 minutes or so for a half-time pint. It is ridiculous. I concur with the half-time pint. It does my head in.
Is it that bad?
It is very bad. Yeah, it is very bad. You've got to know when to do. You basically have to go about 5 minutes before half-time to make sure you're going to get yourself a pint and give yourself time to drink it without necking it in a couple of minutes. It is bad.
Which isn't great, for sort of Mikel Arteta either, because you do see that. I mean, obviously, my experience is very different to our viewers, but you see whatever's happening in the game, you see a sort of mini exodus in those 5 minutes leading up to half-time. They've
got more and more now of the sort of, rather than just the sort of concourse stalls, they've got the sort of portable Camden things where you can sort of go to and do it. And that has helped a little bit, but it's still not great. I mean, in terms of the stadium, there's not really anything fresh to say in terms of what I think we've spoken about it for probably a couple of months ago in terms of, it's being explored. They're looking at it. It's not got, as far as I'm aware, it's not got to any sort of real sort of big stage where they're going to be putting any plans together or anything like that. They're just looking at different things that they might be able to do, and then they decide, right, this is what we do want to do, and then that will get to the stage of, can we do it? And then things might become a little bit more official, and then you've got to have talks to the council and everything like that. But it's just so far off, and there's so much logistics they have to go through, red tape. There'd be definitely, if you're upgrading the number of seats, they'd definitely have to do something with at least one of the stations nearby. It's a massive, massive process. So I'm sure they're looking at it, because the Cronkies aren't, as much as we can sometimes complain about what they want from their football ambitions, they want money. And I think Arsenal are missing out on plenty of money at the moment with the Emirates. It's quickly, even though it's only 20 years old, it's quickly fallen by the wayside in terms of other Premier League stadiums and what it can generate. And so they'll be looking to do that. They've done it with SoFi. SoFi's been such a huge success over there. It's considered already one of the best stadiums. They've got the experience of building that place and have seen firsthand what that can bring in. And I'm sure they'd love to do it probably on a smaller scale, but still do it in North London as well.
The concourse stuff is really interesting. Again, I have to sort of acknowledge that my experience on this is not faultless, but you semi-regularly sort of pop out into the concourse before kickoff, whether it's to sort of say hi to someone or because you hear something that might be interesting. And it does feel like there's space there to add more facilities for fans, like you were saying, like, more things like the guys roving around with Camden pints. And I think that could be a sort of interim move that you can make before you sort of re-explore the whole setup. But all of this is a real challenge because it wasn't really a stadium that was built to be easily expanded. It wasn't a stadium that was built to have a standing area, for instance, which is why there's none at the Emirates. It was a stadium built for sort of where we were at 25 years ago. And I think maybe then people couldn't have quite imagined how much it would become I don't necessarily mean this is a good thing, but it would become a sort of luxury experience and an experience where you spend a lot of money. And if you go to the Tottenham Stadium now as a fan, they are brilliant at keeping you round there. What I would also say, and this is kind of particularly in reference to the Tottenham Stadium, I know a lot of Spurs fans will have their match day rituals, but around the Emirates, there is so much to do. There are so many great pubs, great restaurants. It is a bit like, I don't know how good you could make the Emirates that if I were going as a fan, I wouldn't just go to any one of 15 pubs I could mention. And I won't mention any of them until they start sponsoring us.
Yeah, it's something that I'm intrigued to see how it goes over the next couple of years, because I can absolutely see why by the day they'll be looking at it more and more. Certainly over in the US, and thinking we've got to try and keep with the times, because we're just seeing it. We're seeing the United Stadium plans. I hate the look of that stadium. By the way, absolutely.
I respect it.
I was a Man United
circus inside. It might as well be a circus outside.
If I was a Man United fan, I'd just be like, that is just, it pained me leaving Highbury, but the Emirates, I still never really taken to it. I'd still go back to Highbury in an instant if I could. But to move from Old Trafford, which is so steeped in history and looks like a proper football stadium, to go to that, I'd just be like, if anything, just basically says, we don't care about football. We just want more revenue, more money. It is that stadium that they've just announced at Manchester United. It's just, I hate the look of it. But even so, think if that all works out, the money they'd get from that. Newcastle are about to publish plans by the sounds of it of a new stadium they're going to go to. Cities is going to be over 60,000 soon. We've seen what they've done at Liverpool. Spurs, you've already mentioned. I don't know if Chelsea will ever get their finger out and be able to do anything with Stamford Bridge or move there, but it's. I can see why in the US they'll be sitting there thinking we've got to do something here, and so I think it's definitely something that's going to continue to develop over the next few years. I'm intrigued to see how it goes. Tomo now has got in touch. Says your video this morning had me reliving Henry's goal at the Bernabeu. Without doubt, one of my favourite moments following Arsenal. It made me wonder what is yours and James's favourite Henry goals were for Arsenal. So do you want to list a few of Terry's big moments?
Yeah, because I thought I knew this, and my immediate response, I still think the greatest goal Thierry Henry's ever scored for me is the second against Liverpool in April 2004. Brilliant goal and at a brilliant moment that changed the trajectory of Arsenal's greatest season. I don't think who knows if it was stayed 2-2, but I don't think if that game had if that goal hadn't happened, I'm not sure that this team would have been an invincible team. I think if they'd drawn that game, who knows? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have built the momentum. It wouldn't have sort of felt like they were flying to the end of the season. Like they sort of did until they won the league. But then I remembered goal against Tottenham on 16th of November 2002, which is the one where I'm actually going to watch it now. A little treat to myself. Put it on mute. got it up here. I was like, oh well, and let me go double check. I watched the best goals he ever scored. So I'll talk you through 16th of November 2002, my 13th birthday. And unwrap my presents. There's Grand Theft Auto Vice City waiting to be played. I'm so excited. I should not have been playing that at 13-year-olds. Kids, don't play it if you're that young. And then played that for sort of 4 or 5 hours, switched on the TV to watch Thierry Henry absolutely demolish Tottenham. It's a birthday you don't forget in a hurry. So, that was another iconic Henry goal as well. So,
And
that
celebration.
for me is my favourite. And celebration.
He was right in front of me where I was standing, where I sat. He said where he ended up with the knee slide for the celebration, looking at Spurs fans directly to his right. That was me. Just glorious moment. Can I be very controversial here?
Yeah, go on.
I don't think that goal against Liverpool was that good. From a goal point of view, I think that's rank bad defending from Liverpool. Like if someone scored that goal against Arsenal, I'd be so angry with the defenders for how he was allowed to basically just waltz through. I mean, it was not amazing skill or anything like that. The way he beats Carragher in the end and makes him fall over, it's just really terrible defending from a team who are clearly just scared of Henry, and he just
the thing, is
panic mode. Yeah. I mean, an unbelievable goal and like you said, the context of it, given what had happened previously that week with the Cup semi-final, the Champions League against Chelsea, and being 2-1 down at half-time to Liverpool, then and then just doing that, scoring that, straight after. It was a minute, I think, after or 2 minutes after the equaliser, Perez's equaliser, wasn't it? And Highbury that night with the noise when he scored that goal, it was an unbelievable moment. It is one of the iconic Henry moments, but the goal itself, I think, is a little bit overrated.
That is despicable.
My favourite Henry goals. The one in the Bernabeu was just brilliant, and to do that, to be the first English team to win at the Bernabeu, to score that goal like that, to run through that team the way he did was brilliant. The goal at Upton Park, I think, is not talked about enough.
Yes,
in the 2-2 when we came out and he got that was the first goal, and then Viltord equalised afterwards. But that goal, I don't think is talked about enough for just how good it was.
Blue kit.
Yes, it was blue kit. And he sort of flicked it, the control, he flicks it over the head, brought it down, then just smashed it past David James, I think it was, from 25 yards and a half on. It's an unbelievable goal, that goal. The goal against United, over Bartez's head. Again, I was at 30,000 feet. I was flying to Australia for my year away as an 18-year-old at that point. And I remember getting to Singapore, I think it was, on the stopover, and ringing my dad to find out what the score was at that point. And he'd got back from the game. He was at the game. So I think that's up there for sheer quality. There was a goal he scored in pre-season. If you search for it on the internet, you'll find it. It's like typing Henry amazing pre-season goal. I think it was in Germany or Austria, when Arsenal used to go to Austria.
Glory days, yeah.
And it's just such an outrageously, piss-takingly good goal, the way he does it. The way he scores it.
Keep talking. I think I'm just going to load it up right now.
It's just unbelievable, though. He brings down the long pass, flicks it over the defender's head, and then just his side foot, left-footed volley. It was just. Have you found it?
Yeah, against Vise, I believe.
It's just
I'm seeing a clip from ESPN Sports Centre.
Again, it's like one of those classic "I'm so much better than you at football" type goals that he used to score. It was just that was an unbelievable. So that's one I always think of with Henry.
Charlton back heel.
The Charlton back heel. Yeah, I was there for that one. There was so many.
And the goal when he came back.
The goal against me, the Leeds goal, actually, that's right up there. That is iconic. That was just one of my favourite.
I know that's his favourite goal. I remember asking him once.
Yeah, he said it was because it was his first real goal as a fan, wasn't it? It just made, you could see that in his celebration. Now, that's one of my favourite Arsenal moments, actually, Henry's goal against Leeds. So that'd be up there. But I think the goal against West Ham is just not spoken about enough for just how good it was. I think it was brilliant. But there were so many of them when he was just scorer of outrageous goals. So thank you for that, Tomo. And I think we've got one more, and this is it from Stephen. He says, "Are you getting nervous about your Crystal Palace bet with James?" I have to say, I'm not, no, but I am very, very thankful for the first 3 months of the season that Crystal Palace had. Otherwise, I would be very, very worried about my Crystal Palace bet with James, because everyone else above them is just dropping points left, right, and centre, and Palace are like
It's
a
8
train.
points. It's 8 points to the
Palace,
Champions
I know
League.
they're like a train at the moment. They really, really are. So yeah, I'm not at the stage where I'm worried just yet, but I was laughing to myself. I was laughing to myself the other day about it, thinking, thank God for that poor start to the season they had. But you're quite smug about it now, aren't you?
Oh, incredibly.
Contract talks. He's having a new contract talks, Glasner. I saw Fabrizio tweet yesterday. No surprise they want to keep him.
Oh yeah, get that big release clause in for when Dortmund or whoever come calling.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's it, mate. Thank you very much, as always, for everyone for watching and for listening. I hope you, I hope you enjoyed the Friday night special or Friday evening special. By the time you're watching this, what are your plans for the weekend? You at Chelsea Sunday? Wembley. What's going on at Wembley? Oh, the cup final, of course. Cup final. I'm in the press box for Chelsea on Sunday, so I'll probably watch that after Mikel's presser. Yeah. Who's going to win that?
I think it might be Newcastle's day.
Really?
Alexander Isak is pretty unstoppable, isn't he?
No Anthony Gordon, though. That's a big blow.
No Anthony Gordon's a big blow. Same as no Trent's a big blow for them, and no Lewis. No Lewis Hall, no Botman. It feels like it's set up for Newcastle to be the complete underdogs and to not really have much of a chance. And that's why I think they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell Liverpool are really feeling the sort of scars of Tuesday.
Yeah, that's it.
But either way, whoever loses, I win, because I think it's going to be a great game.
Well, hope you enjoy it, mate.
I love going to Wembley.
Hope you enjoy it. Like I said, I'll be at Arsenal on Sunday, and to everyone watching, I'll be back in the morning to do a bit of a preview show ahead of that game. As usual, anything you want me to discuss in that, get into the comments. I'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. Until then, have a very good start to your weekend, everyone. James, have a good weekend, mate. Enjoy Wembley, and we'll be back to it. We'll be back to do it all over again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.